We've got some very, very exciting things to tell you. We're going to go grunge this morning. My first guest here today definitely knows a thing or two about Seattle's grunge era. Steve Turner is the guitarist and founding member of the band Mudhoney, and he's out with a new memoir called Mud Ride, looking back on his time with Mudhoney throughout the explosion of the grunge culture. Steve joins me now. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, we got to talk about this. This is on sale this week.
Yeah.
What made now the right time to write a music memoir?
My partner in writing the book, Adam Tepedelen, suggested it to me during the early days of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I thought about it a little bit, and I wasn't doing a whole lot else at the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't working, I wasn't touring.
It was the pandemic.
Yeah. So we started doing Zoom meetings and slowly wrestling it into shape, into a format that I thought was representative, I guess, of what I wanted to talk about, which a lot of that was the earlier days before grunge happened in Seattle, if you will, and kind of the punk scene that we all came up through.
So that kind of the punk scene led to the grunge scene. Mm. And I know grunge is so tightly tied to the Pacific Northwest, but can I ask, just for clear definition from you, what does grunge mean to you?
Well, long before it became a thing in the public consciousness, it was just dirty guitar sounds, like distortion and just kind of ugly, sloppy music, I guess. for Mark Arm and myself, that's kind of, we would use that term to describe, you know, pretty gnarly musics.
I think that I've never heard it described like that, but as you say it, I'm hearing the songs in my head going, oh yeah, he nailed it. Seattle is also heavily featured in your book, which is super cool, and in your life story, obviously. What are some of the standout moments and maybe memories from the book?
Well, there's a lot. I think, you know, I started out, my entry into music and punk rock was through skateboarding. So the very first concert I went to was Devo in 1980.
Yes. Yeah,
which was great. But the reason I went there with all of my skateboard buddies is because they'd filmed a video with all the pro skaters down in Southern California, which is why we all got into punk rock, because all the hotshot pros got into it. So we're like, I guess we're into punk rock now.
Yeah.
You know? So that was really fun, going and seeing an actual concert, because I'd never really...
Where did they play?
That was at the Showbox.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah. And so that was a big moment for me. And a few days later, I saw Black Flag, which is a legendary LA punk band. And I was kind of set on my way from that.
When did you start playing guitar?
About 30 minutes after the Black Flag show.
I mean, hey, but sometimes it takes that to make you realize, like, no, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to play.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting that, you know, as young people forming their music tastes, so many people have, you know, different opinions about where music is right now, but looking at these pictures, looking at just how immersive music was in lifestyle. I mean, look at that picture right there. That's you and Courtney Love.
Oh, gosh. Yep.
Oh, gosh. What happened that day?
We had toured with her band Hole a little bit, so we were pals with all of that, that band and stuff, and that was, I think, just backstage at a show in Hollywood.
What were those days like?
They were, you know, we were pretty grounded as people, I think, and by the time the big explosion happened here, we'd been touring already for several years, so it didn't really seem to affect me too much. It was really exciting seeing some of my friends reach that kind of insane success very quickly, and it, you know, was destabilizing for some of them, obviously. But yeah, it was ridiculous and wild and fun, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because you think back and you think about, nobody really understands, you know, what it's going to be like when you hit it big, when you're there. The record company is just kind of all of a sudden there and whisking you away. I mean, what is that like, kind of starting to enter that whole system of being famous?
Well, I mean, we didn't reach that kind of success, you know. Like I said, we were pretty set in our ways by the time we signed to a major label.
Yeah.
And we already knew some of the pitfalls that younger bands kind of fall into, which is like taking a giant advance against your future royalties. We didn't do that. We took a smaller advance for more control. That's
smart.
And you know, it was with Reprise, and they were old school people still in charge. Like Lenny Warnaker was still there.
Yeah.
And so you know, we traversed that whole stuff pretty well, and we were well, basically self-managing. We got a friend to manage us, and so we didn't have any real pitfalls in it. There's no, horror stories for us. We were on the major label, then we weren't, and then we went back to Sub Pop here.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing is that I think it's so important. That is kind of a good model to follow. It's hard when you're a young musician. And speaking of young musicians now, I know that a lot of kids who really love music are rediscovering music. Have you found that as well? Have you found that the younger generation is like, oh my gosh, this is amazing music?
Sure, I think. Well, I have two sons. They're 18 and 23, and they're both really into music. And it's all at their fingertips now. It doesn't require so much searching like it did back in our youth, where we had to scour the record stores, which I love to do.
Yes.
I'm not complaining. But, when my kids get into something, they just do the deep dive on YouTube and everything and find everything out about it. So they shock me with some of the stuff they know about really obscure things. I can't stump them anymore.
You can't stump. Yeah. And they're so proud of that they can't stump you.
Yeah.
I know you have an author event tonight, which we're going to mention in a minute, but your newest album has been out for a couple of months now. How's that going? And April 7th was declared Mudhoney Day here. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was those kind of things are funny, but it's also an honor. They're kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, it's like, well, that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. The new record's doing better than we ever expect, I guess.
That's great.
It seemed to be getting played on the radio and things like that more than the last few. We don't expect a whole lot. We just expect our fans to show up and. You kind of make a record to have an excuse to go on tour these days, in a way.
I like it.
And, we love making records, but we don't expect them to sell big or anything.
I love how humble you are about all this. You're a very accomplished musician, and I think so many people are grateful for the music and what it's provided. You have an event coming up tonight at Third Place Books. Really quickly, tell me what we can expect to hear.
I'm doing a short reading and a discussion with my good friend Jonathan Evison, who's a well-known novelist here, Northwest, but he also came out of the exact same punk scene that we all came out of. He sang in a band called March of Crimes back in 1983.
Awesome.
And so we're going to be talking about the book and the scene, basically, and taking questions from the audience, and I think it'll be really fun.
That'll be awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And again, just like Steve said, he's holding an author event tonight, Thursday, June 15th at 7 p.m. at Third Place Books in Lake Forest Park. It's going to be a great night.